Hello, good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Hope we're all well. Welcome to this evening session. All right, so we're going to continue looking at trigonometry. We are done looking at the sine rule. In this session, we'll start looking at the cosine rule. So for the first part of the cosine rule, we're going to look at how to find the distance. You're given a question and you're required to find the distance. Remember I said whenever you're dealing with a question on trigonometry paper 2, you will only be asked to find one of the two things, either the distance or the angle. So before we proceed to the questions, we need to look at a formula which we're going to be using for finding the distance, which is this one you're seeing on the screen, which is a squared is equal to b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cos a. So this is the formula we're going to be using when finding distance. So let's say, for example, you have a triangle. Let's say you have a triangle PQR. According to the triangle notation, this one becomes R. I'm sure by now you know what I'm doing. This one becomes P. This one becomes Q. Okay, so let's say you are asked to find P. Okay, how are you then going to form this formula according to this? So you notice to say this one is derived from triangle ABC. This formula is derived from triangle ABC. Let's say you have A, B, and C there. So this becomes A, this becomes C, this becomes B. So you notice to say when you're finding A, it's going to be A squared is equal to, and then these two sides add, but you square them. So you're going to say B squared. So you start with you more like put them in alphabetical order, right? B squared plus C squared minus, and then there's a 2 here. You'll notice there's a 2 in this formula. The same values that are adding, you bring them back, but this time around they are multiplying. BC. So these same guys that are here, you just write them again, except you're not going to add plus between the values. Okay, then you say cos. This side you're finding, okay, that is side A, meaning it's going to be cos the angle corresponding to side A, which is going to be angle A. Let's say you're finding B. How is it going to be? It's going to be B squared is equal to, meaning you're going to have A squared plus C squared. You've noticed here we have A, B, C. Here we also have A, B, and C there. Okay, and then once you do that, you're going to say minus, you put a 2 there. These same values that are adding, you put them here. So what values are adding? We have A and C. So AC like that, and then we're going to say cos. What are we going to put here as an angle? We are finding side B, so meaning it's going to be cos the angle at B. Okay, how about if you're finding the side C? So we're going to say C squared is equal to, meaning we're going to pick B and A, right? We're going to have A squared plus B squared minus 2, these same values that are adding, we're going to say A, B, cos what? Cos C. The side you're finding, the angle corresponding to the side you're finding. So this is basically how you come up with these formulas. It's important because you will not always be dealing with triangle ABC. Let's say, for example, your triangle is PQR. How are you going to come up with this formula? So this is basically the example on how to derive this formula. So the side you are finding should, at the end again, you have to have the angle corresponding to that side. You're finding B here, the angle at B. Okay, side C there, the angle at C. Okay, but in every question you need to have A, B, C. As you can see here, there is A, there is B here, there is C there. Okay, there is A, there is B right here, there is C there. Okay, so that is basically how you derive this formula. So in some books, they'll actually put all these 3 formulas that I have just shown you here. But in the exam, they only give you one formula, and you should now be able to derive any other formula from this one. Okay, so that is that. And like I was mentioning, the formula for finding the area of the triangle still remains the same. Just because we are dealing with cosine rule doesn't mean here you're going to change and put cos. That becomes wrong. It is always going to be sine here. Okay, you're going to be using this same formula. Now I said it's going to be a short session because you have already covered the other questions like finding the area of a scalene triangle, finding the shortest distance, and those other questions. So our main focus is just basically on how to find the distance. Okay, so before we proceed, are there any questions on how to derive the formula? Are there any questions before we proceed? Okay, since there are no questions, let's proceed to the first question. So, if you notice, in the previous assignment I gave you, there was a setup. Okay, remember I told you to say the key to solving a question on trigonometry in paper 2 is identifying which rule you are going to use. Are you going to use the sine rule or the cosine rule? There are certain parameters you need to check, which actually tell you to say here you need to use the cosine rule, here you have to use the sine rule. So I intentionally placed the question on cosine rule in the assignment I gave you on sine rule. Okay, so some of you didn't figure that out and you attempted to solve that question. So it wasn't possible for you to solve question 2 in the previous assignment because that question was supposed to be solved using the cosine rule. So please take note of that. You need to check, okay, the parameters. As you can see, I've already spoken about this in the previous sessions, and just looking at the way the sides and the included angle are placed, you can easily tell from what I actually told you in the previous sessions that this is going to be the cosine rule. Because if you try to apply the sine rule, you will notice to say the side corresponding to that is r, which we don't know, okay, and then the angle corresponding to this side is this one here, which we also don't know, okay, and then the angle corresponding to that side is this one there, which we also don't know. Therefore, you can't use the sine rule here because the sine rule requires that you should have at least one side and its corresponding angle given in order for you to solve the question. Just give me a moment. Let me just pick up this call. It's important. Hello?
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, thanks. How are you?
Good, thanks. This is Petronella from Render Business Solutions. I am calling to let you know that I'm in the process of activating your Starlink.
Yes, please.
So there's an email that has come
Okay.
to you from Starlink that's saying set your password. Set
Okay.
your Starlink password. So set it and then send the password to me.
All right, thank you. Let me do that just now. Come on, man. Come on. What up? Good evening again. Sorry about that. I'm just trying to activate my Starlink so that at least I can be easily conducting these lessons. All right. Okay. So let's proceed. Otherwise, sorry for the wait. Okay. So I was just explaining to say here you can't use the sine rule to answer this question. Okay. And then I gave you two scenarios for the cosine rule in the previous sessions. I said when it comes to the cosine rule, it's either they'll give you one angle and two sides. Okay, let's say I have triangle ABC. This is how you know to say I'm supposed to use the cosine rule here. Let's say they've given you triangle ABC, as you can see on the screen, and then they give you, let's say this side, they say this is 7 meters, and then they say this is 8 meters, and then they also tell you to say this is angle 80 degrees. Okay, so they'll give you two sides, and where these two sides are meeting, they'll give you that angle there. Just know that this is the cosine rule. Okay, let's say for example they give you 8 this side, but they don't give you 7 there. They say this is 6 meters, then they tell you to say this is 70 degrees. You still notice to say these two sides they have given you, where they are meeting at C, the angle is also given. Okay, let's say they swap, and then they say this is 6 meters, and then this is 7 meters. Okay, and then here they tell you to say maybe this is 50 degrees. You now notice to say the two sides they have given you. Ish. Sorry about that. Just a moment. Hello.
Send me a verification code from your email.
All right. Let me do that. Okay, I think that was the last phone call. All right, so I'm sure by now you've gotten it. They've given you two sides. Where these two sides are meeting, the angle there is also given. Okay, so I'm not saying that the questions will only be phrased this way. Sometimes maybe they'll give you three sides. They might say 8 meters even here, and then maybe they give you this angle here as 100 degrees. Okay, still you should be able to know to say you can either use the for this one. Now you can even use the cosine rule, because the cosine rule also matches because of these guys that are corresponding. Okay, so maybe they might give you a different angle, but yeah, just take note of that. For the cosine rule, if they're asking you to find the side, they usually give you a question that looks like this. So let me just show you question 2 as well. You notice to say it's the same format. The side is given, the side is given. Where these two sides are meeting at P, the angle is also given. This is a question I gave you, I think, as an assignment. Yeah, so that is basically how you tell to say here I have to use the cosine rule. Because if you are unable to tell what you are supposed to use, you may not be able to solve this question. Okay, so now first thing we're going to do is we're going to name this triangle according to the triangle notation. Okay, so here Looks like in this session I'll keep on apologizing. My network just dropped. Yeah, I hope you are all able to see my screen. If you're unable to see my screen, please make mention. So I was saying that you actually notice, I think that was before my network dropped, you actually notice to say questions on cosine rule where you are required to find the distance will actually be phrased or be formatted something like what you're seeing on the screen. Two sides given, and then where these two sides are meeting, the included angle is there as well. If you look at the other question, it's the same format. Okay, two sides are given, and then where these two sides are meeting, there is the angle also given to you. Okay, so let's now look at question 1, which is coming from 2024 GCE paper 2, and it says that the diagram shows a triangle PQR in which PR is 8.9 centimeters, QR is 12.5 centimeters, and angle PRQ is 130.0. So they're basically just describing the shape you're seeing on the screen. Okay, and then the first question they're saying calculate PQ. So PQ, this is P here and this is Q. So they want us to find this distance right here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to name this triangle according to the triangle notation. We're basically naming the sides. Okay, so the side corresponding to angle R is going to be named with a small letter R. The side corresponding to angle P, which is this one here, will be named with a small letter P. The side corresponding to angle Q, this one right there, okay, will be named using a small letter Q. Having done that, we can now identify what we're trying to find. They're asking us to find PQ. So PQ is now represented by R. So we need to come up with an equation, a formula for R. So we're going to say R squared. Remember that format we had, A squared is equal to B squared plus C squared minus 2, these same guys. So we're going to have B, C, and then you're going to say cos what? You're finding the side A, so the angle corresponding to A is just basically a capital A. So this is the standard format for the formula. So since we're finding R squared, and this is triangle P, Q, R, so meaning we're going to say, which one comes first? That should be P. So we're going to say P squared plus Q squared, okay? And then minus 2, these same variables, PQ, and then we're going to say cos. What are you finding? Side R. So it's going to be cos capital letter R. And then we simply plug in these values into our formula and then we solve. So we're going to say R squared is equal to, what is P? P is 12.5. So I mean it's going to be 12.5 squared plus, what is Q? Q is right here, 8.9. So it's going to be 8.9 squared minus 2. Then you put these other values in brackets. So what's the value for P? So P is here, right here, 12.5. So I'm going to say 12.5. You close, open again. There's Q here. What is Q? Q is 8.9. So I'm going to say 8.9. You close, and then at the end you're going to put cos. What is the angle at R? The angle at R is 130.6. So I'm going to say 130.6 right there. Okay. Then you can simply punch everything on the right side. So I'm going to say 12.5 squared plus 8.9 squared minus 2, open brackets, 12.5, close bracket, open bracket, 8.9, close bracket, and then we're going to say cos A, that is 130.6, 130.6. Then let me double check that I've punched the correct values. So I'm saying 12.5 squared, 8.9 squared minus 2, open bracket 12.5, close bracket, open bracket 8.9, close bracket, cos 130.6. I press equals. This gives me 380 point. So as I'm doing this, please punch with me so that you make sure that you are getting the same values as I am. Okay, 257.2633. 2633. Okay, and then we need to get rid of this squared value, right? So we are going to need to square root both sides. So I'm going to say 380.2572633. So obviously this answer should still be displayed on your calculator. So simply press the square root button and then you press equals. Some calculators will allow you to do that, but some like mine will say syntax error, meaning I first have to press the square root button and then plug in that decimal manually. So 380.2572633. Okay, so that gives me 19.50018624. So meaning the value of R is 19.50018624. 8624. Therefore R is just going to be 19.5. What are they using? What units are they using in the question? They're using centimeters, as you can see. They say 12.5 centimeters. So you're also going to put centimeters here. And you're done. Coming to the area of a triangle. This one is actually the simplest when you're dealing with this type of equation, because you remember we said when you're finding the area of the triangle, the formula is, let me just clear some space here. So whatever from finding the value of R, let us replace that with 19.5. Okay, I've taken note. Let me clear. Then I'll write it down. So this is 19.5. Come on. Why is my pen not coming through? Right. This is 19.5 centimeters. And that is our R. Okay, so remember we said the area for finding the formula for finding the area of a scalene triangle is the same as the one we're using the time we're looking at sine rule. So it's just basically 0.5 or 1 over 2 if you like, BC, and then sine A. Don't make a mistake and then you put cos here. That's because we're dealing with cosine rule. That becomes wrong. Okay, and then we say these are sides and this is an angle. So when you have this type of equation, you simply pick these two and this angle, because we said the format you're going to follow when picking these sides in the formula for finding the area of a scalene triangle, you're going to pick sides which, where they are meeting, the angle is also known. So as you notice, this side and this side are meeting at R, and the angle at R is also known. So whenever you see this question, just know that the original values you're given in the question are the values you're going to use when solving the area of a scalene triangle. So I'm going to say 0.5 times 12.5 times 8.9 times sine. Okay, so the area is the included angle, which is 130.6. Then we just have to punch everything there. So we're going to say 0.5 times 12.5 times 8.9 times sine 130.6. 130.6, you press equals. So that gives me, let me just confirm that I punched the correct value. 0.5 times 12.5 times 8.9 times sine 130.6. Okay, that sounds correct. So there's a decimal here. That gives me 42.234466 2344667. Okay, when you round it off, it gives us 42.23, that is centimeter. This is area, so centimeter squared, and that's your final answer. Coming to the shortest distance, the same formula again. Okay, h is equal to 2a over b, just like we are looking at in the sine rule lessons. Okay, where a here is a area and b is a distance they will mention in the question, which is in this case is p. Okay, so I'm going to say 2 times what is the area? The area is this one up here, so it's 42.23 over, and then here they're saying find the shortest distance from R to PQ. So here where there is B in the formula, we're going to plug in the distance PQ, which is the 19.5 we found. So 19.5, when you punch, what do you get? So we're going to say 2 times 42.23 equals, and then divided by 19.5, that gives me 4.331282051. 4.331282051, which when you round it off will just give you 4.33 centimeters, and you are done. Okay, this one is pretty simple. I'm sure we remember how to solve this question. Okay, I keep checking the chat for questions. I'm not seeing any questions. Okay, is it clear? If it is clear, please respond with a thumbs up so that I can be able to see that people are following. Otherwise, the only new question we have had to tackle is the one for finding the distance. Okay, all right, thank you for those responses. It's good that people are following. Okay, so let me just quickly solve the last question, which is this one here, where they're asking us to simplify this question here. So we already looked at these questions the time we're looking at algebra in paper 1, and we said the key to solving this question is realizing that at some point you need to cancel out some values, and the first thing you are going to do is to check whether there are any values you can factorize. After you factorize, you check, do I have any perfect squares? If you have any perfect squares, then you apply the principles of difference of two squares. So you notice to say up here we have a couple of common factors. The 3 is common there, it can go into 3, it can also go into 6, and then the x squared is common. So meaning on the numerator part, our common factor is 3x squared. Okay, you open the bracket and then you start dividing each term with the 3x squared. Alright, so 3x cubed divided by 3x squared will give us x. Okay, negative divided by a positive, which is right here, gives you a negative. 6x squared divided by 3x squared will just give you a 2. Okay, the x squared and the x squared will cancel. 6 divided by 3 gives you a 2 there, and you are done there. If you go to the denominator, you also notice to say the x is common there, so you can factorize using the x. So you're going to say x, open bracket, what is x squared divided by x? It gives you x. Okay, this negative divided by the positive there gives you a negative. 2x divided by x, the x's will cancel, remain with a 2. At this point, you now notice to say you are going to have some values that are identical. In the brackets, you have x minus 2 on the numerator part. You also have x minus 2 down here. So what does that tell you? It simply means these two will cancel out. What are you going to remain with? You're going to remain with 3x squared over x, which you can further simplify. What is 3x squared divided by x? That will just give you 3x, and that will be your final answer. Okay, we now proceed to our final question, which is coming from 2023 paper 2 GCE, and it says the diagram shows the positions of 3 towns P, Q and R. P, Q, they're just describing this diagram you're seeing here. So let us investigate. Okay, let us check our parameters. What rule are we using here? you notice that it's the same as the previous question you are from using. They have given us two sides, and where these two sides are meeting, they have also given us the angle, which clearly tells you to say you are supposed to use the cosine rule. So the first thing you're going to do is name the triangle according to the triangle notation. So the side opposite P becomes a small letter P. The side opposite angle Q, which is this one here, becomes small letter Q. The side opposite angle R, this one here, becomes small letter R. And now what are they asking us to find? Calculate the distance RQ to two decimal places. RQ. Where is R? R is here and Q is there. So they want us to find the distance P. We come up with our formula. So first let's write down that standard formula, which is B squared plus C squared minus 2BC cos A. So we're finding P. Okay, so meaning it's going to be P squared is equal to, what other sides do we have? We have R and Q. So we're going to say R squared plus, okay, plus Q squared minus 2, the same values we're adding here, 2RQ, and then cos, what side are you finding? P. So meaning it's going to be capital letter P for the angle. And then you plug in those values and solve. So what is the value for R? R is represented by 7.1. So it's going to be 7.1 squared plus, what is Q? Q is represented by 23.8. So 23.8 squared minus 2 in brackets, what is R? R is 7.1. So 7.1, close, open. What is Q? 23.8. So 23.8, you close, and then let me try to push it to the right. Okay, I think they are okay. And then cos P. What is the angle at P? The angle at P is 92.7. Trying to switch to my marker, but it keeps misbehaving. Okay, what's going on? All right, so the angle at P is 92.7. So we're going to say cos 92.7, right? Yes. Then we're going to say P squared will be equal to, we now punch everything. So we are going to say 7.1 squared plus 23.8 squared minus 2, open bracket, 7.1, close bracket, open bracket, 23.8, close bracket, cos 92.7. Okay, let me just confirm that I've punched the correct values. You can't afford to make mistakes here. 7.1 squared plus 23.8 squared minus 2, open bracket, 7.1, close bracket, open bracket, 23.8, close bracket, cos 92.7. When I press equals, it gives me 632.77 00961. Okay, so we need to get rid of this square. So meaning we are going to square root both sides. So we're going to say 632.7700961. Square root that guy as well. So we cancel that, meaning our P is going to be, so my calculator does not allow me to simply press the square root button. I need to erase everything, start with the square root button, and then punch those values manually. So 63.2 7700961, 632.7700961. If If I press equals, it gives me 25.1549291. 25.1549151. Okay, to 2 decimal places. Remember the question says to 2 decimal places, so that's going to be 25.15. What are they using? Kilometers. Okay, that is going to be your distance at P, so that is 25.15 kilometers, and you are done. Okay, do you have any questions at this point? If you have a question, you can raise your hand. There is a button with a hand on it. Simply press it, then I'll be able to see that your hand is up or your hand is raised, and then I'll give you an audience so that you can unmute your mic and ask. Alternatively, you can simply type your question in the chat, then I'll be able to see your question. Okay, since there's no question, at this point we actually don't even need to proceed to the other question, because you already know how to solve these other questions, but we are still going to solve them either way, so that we have no room for excuses. Okay, the more we solve them, the more we're going to understand this topic. So we go to the next one. We're asked to find the area of a triangle. Remember, the formula for finding the area of a triangle is the same as the one for finding the area of a triangle when you're dealing with the sine rule. So it's the same. Area is equal to 0.5, if you like, 1/2 BC sine A. Okay, A is equal to, so you know to say A is that, B is that, not really A, but B is, could be this or that, it doesn't matter how you put them, but simply capture these values that you have been given, the two sides. So I'll say 0.5 times, so I'll assign this one as my B, 7.1 times, then C, I'll assign this one automatically, 23.8. okay, sine, okay, sine A is the included angle, which is 92.7. then my area becomes 0.5 times 7.1 times 23.8 sine 92.7. 92.7. I confirm that I've punched the correct values. 0.5 times 7.1 times 23.8 times sine 92.7. 92.7. Okay, so that gives me 84.396 20554 20554. When you round that off to 2 decimal places, it gives you 84.3. okay, so initially this 6 will round this one upwards, which comes 10, and then this also gets rounded upwards, so it's going to be 4. It's the same as 4.0. so 84.4. what unit are they using? Kilometers. So this is area, it becomes kilometer squared. Having found that one, we can now proceed to finding the shortest distance of P from RQ. So shortest distance is represented by this formula, 2A over B. H is equal to 2 times the area, this one you just found here, 84.4, over B is the distance they are mentioning in the question they're asking you. Okay, RQ. What is RQ? RQ, most of the cases they will give you the same question you actually solved. This is why they do this. They want to make sure that if this question was wrong, then you also get the next question wrong. Okay, so be very careful as you solve. So our RQ is 25.15. 25.15. When we solve, what do we get? So 2 times 84.4, 2 times 84.4, what does that give me? It gives me 168.8. and then I say divided by 25.15. that gives me 6.711 6.711 7296 729622, which when you round off to 2 decimal places, it gives you 6.71 kilometers. They're using kilometers in this question. Okay, 6.71 rounded off to 2 decimal places. And then the last example again, which is this one, just as the one we're from solving. So they're saying simplify 9x squared minus 1 over 9x plus 3. So now remember, this question you need to first check, can I factorize? If you can factorize, go ahead and factorize. Then you check, do I have any perfect squares? So you actually notice to say up here we have perfect squares. 9 is a perfect square as well as 1. Okay, 1 is a perfect square as well. You remember from the lesson we had on what's the difference of two squares? I did give you examples of perfect squares, which are 1, 4, 9, 16, 15, not 15, that is 25, 36, 49, and the list goes on. Okay, so why is 1 a perfect square? What is the square root of 4? The square root of 4 is what? 2. Why is 2 the square root of 4? Because when you say 2 times 2, it gives you what? It gives you a 4. Okay, what is the square root of 9? The square root of 9 is 3. Why is 3 the square root of 9? 3 times 3 gives you a 9. That is why 3 is the square root of 9. Last one. What is the square root of 16? It is a 4. Why is 4 the square root of 16? 4 times 4 gives you a 16. Now we come to a special number. What is the square root of 1? The square root of 1 is 1. Why is 1 the square root of 1? 1 times 1 gives you a what? A 1. So that's how come 1 is a perfect square, in case you were wondering. You can't do this with any other number. Okay? Like 2, 3, 5 or something. So 1 is a special perfect square. And most cases students forget this. That's how come they get some questions wrong, like this one here. So if you're not careful, you think as if there 1 is not a perfect square and you lose it. So here we have a 9 which is a perfect square and 1 is a perfect square. So we're simply going to ask ourselves, what is the square root of 9? It is 3. X squared, what's the square root of 1? It is a 1. You simply put a 2 there. You also need to put a 2 there. The square root of 9 is a 3. You put a 2 up there. Okay. The square root of 1 is 1. You put a 2 up there. Okay, I want people to follow. Let me just redo everything. Okay, what is the square root of 9? It is a 3. Then you add a 2 up there. You write the x squared. You bring down that minus. What is the square root of 1? It is 1. You add a 2 up there. Over. Down here you can factorize. A 3 is common there. So we're going to say 3, open bracket. What is 9x divided by 3? It is going to give us 3x. Okay, then you bring down that plus. Not really bring down, but you're going to divide the signs. Positive divided by the positive right here, it gives you a positive even there. And then you're going to say the 3 divided by this 3 here gives you a 1. At this point, you're going to apply the principles of difference of two squares here. So we're going to say 3x in one bracket, we are going to add those values. In the other bracket, we're going to subtract them. You remember this stuff. Okay, 3x. Okay, so there's a 3 outside here, which we factorized with, plus 1. You will now notice to say this guy and this guy are identical. So therefore, they cancel out. So this bracket and this bracket will cancel out. What do you remain with? On top here, you just have this bracket, which is 3x minus 1. And then down here, you just have a 3 remaining. Okay, so that's your 3 there. Now, some students will make a mistake and try to reduce these numbers. 3x minus 1 over 3. And then they'll be like, okay, this 3 and that 3 cancel. So I remain with x minus 1. This is wrong. This is right. Okay, so don't do that. I remember also mentioning this the time we're looking at functions, paper 1. Okay, why you can't factorize here? It simply means the 3 here is a common denominator. It's the same as 3x over 3 minus 1 over 3. So you can't just cancel this side. Okay, and then the 3 disappears. Here it also belongs to 1. So whenever you have something like this, you cannot cancel. Therefore, your correct answer is the one I have left right here, and you are done. Alright, this brings us to the end of our session. In the next session, we're now going to look at the last lesson on trigonometry, which will be on how to find an angle. And we'll be pretty much done with trigonometry. So do we have any questions? Do we have any questions? Have we understood the lesson? If we have understood the lesson, let us respond with thumbs up. If you have a question, you can raise your hand or you type in the chat. Okay, great. People are saying they have understood. Okay, we'll tell from the assignment. So I'll send the assignment in the group and it needs to be submitted for marking tomorrow before 21 hours. Okay, you need to submit the assignment. Some of you don't submit assignments. I know you're busy with work, school, or other things, but you need to submit assignments so that I can be able to check what you're doing and be able to advise in case you are wrong somewhere. Okay, don't just, some of you may not even be attempting because that's why you may not be submitting assignments. Mathematics is different from these other subjects. The more you practice, the better you become. So if you're just going to be watching videos, I can assure you, you're not going to be as good as someone who constantly tries to attempt the questions they are given. Watching videos is not enough, okay? Or learning online like this is not enough. You need to try and solve on your own. That way, the knowledge you are actually acquiring online or from whoever is may be tutoring you will actually be able to, that knowledge will cement in your mind and you'll be able to remember it the time you'll be in the exam room. But if you're just watching videos, you're just learning online like this and you're not solving, you might actually fail again this year. And we know no one wants that. So please make sure you are solving as frequent as possible and make sure you're only focusing on exam questions. Forget pamphlets for now, unless they are daploids, because daploids have question papers there. Okay, so just focus on exam papers. That is what will help you. As you can see here, you've actually identified the pattern. We have looked at 2 different questions and yet they are very similar. 2 different years, okay? 2024 and 2023. Different years, but the questions you can tell to say these are very similar. So by solving exam papers, you are basically teaching yourself how to expect the exam paper to look like. Okay, and as you go into that exam room, nothing will look strange. But if you are not solving, everything will look strange. Okay, so that is all I had for you in this session. I'll send the assignment in the group. I'll see you in the next session. Have a good night.